This quick tutorial is going to go over how to load a 2D anime figure, pose it, and set up lighting for reference using Daz 3D. Real quick, Daz 3D is a free 3D software with a large shop of additional free assets you can download online. Their latest model release, Genesis 9, comes with a toon shaded anime preload you can use that I personally prefer over Clip Studio Paints, which can be a bit difficult and jank to set up and use. You're going to install Daz and all other updates and assets for it through the Daz Install Manager. You'll need to set up a free account on Daz 3D to register things you download and to purchase any non-free items from their shop, but once installed, you can do all your work in the program offline and without being logged in. Again, this anime model is a default preload that comes with the Genesis 9 model in their latest update. When you load up Daz, it'll look something like this. To find and load your models, click on the Smart Content tab and then click on the figures. Find the anime preload and double click it to load it into the scene. I didn't record these steps because this model does load without hair and clothes and with you know what here, so if you don't want to see that, you're going to have to go down to the materials, wardrobe section and load some default clothes on her, which I've already done for this video. If you want to change the shape of the model, you can adjust it through the shaping tab. Adjust the default figure shapes with the sliders or manually by clicking on specific areas and adjusting them. You have a lot of different options when it comes to posing the model, and a lot of default poses you can just preload from the posing tab for reference and then work with. Your camera view, zoom, and rotation tools are on the top right here if you don't want to use the middle mouse button and the cube. Honestly, this is just one of many features with Daz that I highly prefer over Clip Studio because it's a million times easier than their built-in navigation tools to use and it doesn't lag. Additionally, there's plenty of props you can grab for free off the shop and download to use along with your models to help make the perfect custom reference for your art piece. If you know your way around Blender and 3D modeling, you can also bring in anything you make in Blender or export Daz 3D models into Blender since they are cross-compatible with each other, and there's a Daz to Blender add-on you can install for free for both programs. If you want to keep the pose of a part of your figure but change other parts without that part being affected, you're going to click on the part and click on the pin that pops up and then tell it to pin the parts of it you don't want changing. In this case, I'm pinning both the rotation and the position. You can unpin parts the exact same way. Once pinned, you can click on other parts you want to change the pose of and then just easily use the parameters tab on the side and the bend, twist, front and back and side to side sliders to position the body part. It's insanely fast and simple, and these models come with built-in restraints, so you're not going to wind up with anything that wouldn't be physically possible to pull off. This program also offers multiple viewports you can have on screen at the same time that you can change from the window tab at the top, again making it insanely valuable as a source of reference for your drawing by being able to see multiple angles of your object and in turn being able to really understand and grasp the shapes of them and how they're interacting with the light. Now real quick, you may have noticed that this model loaded solid black when I changed the window ports. This is because originally they're loaded using the filament render view, but the new windows defaulted to texture shading. The anime shaders used aren't compatible with this, so just change to filament and you'll be good to go. If you want semi-realism reference, which is a style that focuses on stylized objects in realistic lighting that imitates an airbrushed or 3D look like anime figures or Mario characters do, just change the shader to NVIDIA iRay. This preview fully renders out, and depending on how much you have in your scene can take a bit longer to generate. It will be extremely difficult to do any posing with because it will need to re-render every additional change, so don't work in this view mode, but switch to it in the end when you're done setting up all your lighting and posing and whatever else instead. How bright your lighting is in this mode is going to depend on your actual render settings, so to change that, go into the tab and then into the environment section and change the environment intensity slider to adjust the brightness and the environment map slider to adjust how much color from the environment map is showing up on your figures. If you have a custom background or scene you want the model to be using the colors of so it matches, you'd click on the environment map picture and replace it with the picture your background is. These changes only affect the rendering of the NVIDIA iRay view and don't apply to the toon shaded previews, so don't use them if you're only setting up a 2D style reference. To light your model, you have a few different types of light sources to choose from you can load from the Create menu. In most cases, a distant light is what you'll be using. You can adjust the position of this by clicking on the distant light and using the parameters tab and the rotation sliders. As a side note, you can change the pose or position of the model with lighting loaded whenever you want to. I'm also going to load in a spotlight because you can load more than one type of lighting into the scene. If I needed a reference with her holding a glowing sword or something as an example and wanted to see what areas of her body would be catching the glow, I'd use something like this. Though honestly, I don't use this program much anymore at this stage, but I did use it a lot when I was learning, and it really helped me learn a lot about lighting and form when I was new to them and struggling and couldn't find specific reference to match what I wanted to do. So this is mainly why I wanted to talk about all of this in this video. Hopefully it can really help others who have the same struggles I did to get past them. Anyway, you can grab the semi-transparent white corners of these light objects to change the position by dragging them around if you don't want to use the sliders. You can also adjust the intensity and the color of the light from these menus really easily. You can't see it in the video because OBS isn't capturing specific program windows, just the main one, but clicking on the color loads a color wheel and some default swatches you can use to change the color, and that's what I'm using here. You can change the color of the distant light or anything else in the scene the same way by just going into the color and playing around. To change the overall intensity of the lighting on the figure beyond the light source itself, you want to go back into your render settings and go into the tone mapping to affect the 2D shaders on the figure. From here, adjust the exposure value. Once you're done setting up the perfect reference for your piece, you can render it out in the render settings, but honestly, I personally suggest if you don't want to wait a long time for those to render out, that you just cheat a little bit and use either the Windows snipping tool or the Windows screen capture tool to quickly just make a JPEG and start using it instead. It's not really worth going through all the effort of rendering it out since it's only reference anyway. And that's about it. That should be a pretty good starting crash course going over some basics on how to use Daz 3D to set up your own custom reference models and scenes and light them for your drawings if you wanted to. Everything I mentioned obviously works with the hyper-realistic models in the program the same way if you wanted more realistic reference. I think the only thing I didn't cover is how to set up things like ray tracing on those for accurate light and color jumps, but you can look into that on your own if you're interested in more 3D stuff like that. That's it for this video. I'll leave a link to Daz 3D down in the description area of the video for anyone who wants to grab it and use it instead of Clip Studio's models. Thanks for watching. Later.